Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there. Welcome to the program. It's June 14, 2023. Hey. I wonder what the date was when I started sighing at the beginning of shows. It has to be easily decades ago now. And you have to figure that when I started sighing, I thought things were really bad. and you know what? They weren't half as bad as they could be. Jeez. Well, here we are. I don't know. Did you waste time yesterday afternoon watching nothing? I finally told myself, stop this. Get up. Go out. Do some gardening. Move. This is nonsense. They're not letting us in. We can't see anything that's going on in the courtroom. All you're listening to is, talkers talking. Tap dancing, desperately hoping somebody comes out and tells them something, and then all of that nothing was bookended by watching Trump's motorcade going and coming. The Trump show. It's back in force, and we're all just staring at it again. I saw somebody say he sucks all the air out of the room. That's exactly what he does. That's what narcissists do. I have a few of them in my life. That's what they do. They suck the air out of the room. I thought, well, I don't know. Do I want to even? First of all, let's just back up. And I don't like the fact that we, the people, for whom all of this, our judicial system finally taking some control here in the insanity, we, the people, should be able to see what's going on. Why is, the question is, I know the answer. The courts control what the courts are willing to do. And the federal judiciary in particular has been absolutely incapable of even entertaining the idea of allowing we, the people, to see what is going on. And in all the yappity yapping, waiting for somebody to tell us what was happening inside, the one thing I did hear that just makes perfect sense is that the federal courts, especially in a case of this import, need to let us in. And you can do that with a solitary camera. It does not have to, like C-SPAN. It can just be let us in. It's too consequential. Be a solitary camera. The jurors not anywhere near camera range. It won't happen. So there's that. And then there's that remarkable stop that the entourage made on his way back from pleading not guilty to things he's clearly guilty of. That stop at a Cuban American restaurant where I was just appalled as a Jew to see some Jew in a yarmulke who I've heard was a rabbi, like grabbing him and was like crazily telling him, boy, did I want to hear. I don't know that I wanted to hear. Just, obviously telling Trump everything he wanted to hear. So much so that Trump actually hugged him. I mean, like, just embrace this jerk afterwards. It was just a big show. If you had just been indicted and then had your initial court appearance on a slew of federal charges, which could land you in jail for a long time, tell me, would you then go and sort of have a party? Of course not. You would be shamefaced. You would be scared. I got a feeling he's scared, but shamefaced is something he doesn't do. I think that Tom Friedman has a very good column in today's New York Times. I will share some of it with you because it is about how Trump does things, why he does things, the Trump show, and how we've all become, at a certain point, somewhat inured to it because it has become the new normal and because he has upended everything and we're used now to the chaos he creates. But I think Friedman breaks through a lot of it in this piece. I'll just share some. Trump is like a drug dealer who thrives in a broken neighborhood, getting everyone hooked on his warped values. That is why he is doing everything he can to break our national neighborhood. And then he explains some of what Trump has done, and you'll remember, as do I, how when we first saw him in this current iteration, how appalling it was, and how you couldn't even believe the things that were coming out of his mouth. And then seeing that people were loving what was coming out of his mouth. That's the part to this day that still frightens me the most. Do you remember when he was running for the Republican nomination first time around? This would be 2015. And he went after John McCain. And Friedman quotes, just in case we've forgotten, what Trump said. He said that when McCain ran, he said, I supported him. He lost. He let us down. He lost. So I never liked him much after that because I don't like losers. And then a guy who was moderating whatever this event was, and by the way, when he said he lost and I don't like losers, his Republican audience laughed. So joining with him in this denigration of a man. who was head and shoulders above Donald Trump. And so somebody said, but he was a war hero. Trump went on. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured. So Trump, one of the things that, again, and this is what's frightening, is we are inured to it. That was startling at the time. We were just seeing for the first time that this man would say things and do things that would be considered, beyond the pale, that should get him booed off a stage. He got laughs. So Friedman says, for starters, Trump has consistently denigrated people who have demonstrated character and courage. Two things he does not possess. Character and courage. Stop and think. What do you do with people who show character and courage? You elevate them. You put them up as people to be emulated. Donald Trump and his upside down world, you denigrate him. And the joke is it works. It works. You take people of character and courage, and as Friedman says, with Trump, you label them losers, weaklings. And this is easy for a guy like Trump because he is utterly without character. He is devoid of any sense of ethics or loyalty to any value system or person other than himself. And clearly for him, politics is a blood sport. And in a blood sport, you don't hold back. You bludgeon the enemy, whether they're in your party or not. You bludgeon them with smears and with ridiculing nicknames and with lies until you get out of your way. And that's what he did. And lo and behold, we saw as the Republican Party, the base, the people who vote for Republicans, happily turn their backs on a John McCain and embraced this contemptible, vile man. And I like to think of myself sometimes as a quick study, but I have to tell you, this many years later, I'm still sitting here with my mouth hanging open. How the hell? What does that say about us, about our country? That this vile, contemptible man without any value system other than his, what's good for me, that he could. And that this would resonate, appeal to so many. What does that say? They must agree with him. They see him as a leader. Huh? They see John McCain as a loser and Donald Trump as a leader. What is it they're thinking? That winning is something you do by bludgeoning your friends, enemies, anybody who looks at you cross-eyed. This is who you want your children to look at as a leader and to emulate. Friedman says, when that is your definition of winning, then a person of character like McCain or Liz Cheney, let's say, they need to be gotten rid of, and he did. They need to be stripped of their character and made into threats and jokes and losers, and everything then becomes about securing power. And let us not forget, money. One of the pictures before I pulled myself off the couch was when his motorcade it was an aerial shot zipping down a freeway in Florida, unimpeded, of course, by any traffic. 3 cars, the roads themselves. And on both sides of that roadway, you saw bumper to bumper stopped cars with regular people, little people, you and me, sitting stopped in traffic, so that this vile man, at our expense, protected by Secret Service, roads closing for him, could be ferried to the courthouse to be charged. Friedman says, because Trump won't stop at red lights anywhere and just keeps daring us to ignore his transgressions or indict him, and none of it matters because he has a game plan. Well, he's victim. He cries bias. And in doing so, he ends up eroding, Friedman, the 2 most important pillars of our democratic system. The belief in the independence of our judiciary. It's not just him. The Republicans have all picked up his cry that the Justice Department has been politicized. So that is eroding, obviously, the trust in our judicial system. And the other thing that he has done is, up until he lost the election to Joe Biden and refused a normal transfer of power, we, silly us, actually believed that we were a country in which the transfer of power was a given. It was peaceful. It was cordial. And then came Trump. So I'll just finish with these words from Friedman. He wants to break our system because people like him, only thrive in a broken system. So he keeps pushing and pushing our system to its breaking, where rules are for suckers, norms are for fools, basic truths are malleable, and men and women of high character are banished. It is impossible to exaggerate what a dangerous moment this is for our country. And those of us who, like me, sit here still with our jaws dropped open, had better believe that he can break us, because he's done a hell of a job thus far. It is impossible to exaggerate what a dangerous moment this is. And then he flew off to another of his Bedminster, where his gaggle of creeps was awaiting his triumphant return. And he stood before them and said, this is part of what he said. If the communists get away with this, it won't stop me. Now, again, you have to stop and say, what the hell is he talking? What communists? I guess the federal judicial system. I guess Jack Smith. I guess Democrats. The communists? If the communists get away with this, it won't stop me. They will not hesitate to ramp up their persecution of Christians. Is he calling himself a Christian? I was going to say Jesus is rolling over in his grave, but I forgot he got out of it. They'll ramp up their persecution of Christians, pro-life activists, parents attending school board meetings. What he means, of course, is parents disrupting school board meetings and threatening school board members. And even future Republican candidates. And then he said, I am the only one that can save this nation. That is, like so many things that come out of this mouth, an exact lie. Just turn it inside out, because he is the only one who can destroy this nation. How can people think this cartoon World Wrestling Federation idea of a leader is something you wish for? How could people be so stupid to fall for this bombastic jerk? As I've said before, it's not him that scares me. The people who look at him, see him, hear him, and see somebody they revere. Somewhere we took a wrong turn. Anyway, another quote I saw that might be of some interest. His former chief of staff, General John Kelly, he was talking about, the show he puts on, stopping at the Cuban restaurant, going up to Bedminster looking like it was a triumphant day for him. And John Kelly said, he's scared shitless. John Kelly would know because he saw him up close and personal. He's scared shitless, Kelly said. This is the way he compensates. He gives people the appearance he doesn't care by doing, this, the bravado, the false bravado. For the first time in his life, Kelly says, it looks like he's being held accountable. And up until this point, it's like, I'm not going to pay you. Take me to court. He's never been held accountable before. He's scared shitless. I'll tell you who's scared shitless. Me! I am. One of my favorite writers, Tom Nichols, said this about being scared shitless. He said this: I know it's hard to find the right balance between vigilance and alarm. I'm not always sure how to do it myself. It's a line all of us find difficult to walk because we've never had an American political scene so thoroughly infested with kooks, conspiracists, and would-be traitors. But remember, they are a minority, and they know it. And many of their leaders are likely more fearful of irrelevance, of change, of failure than anyone else. Take their threats seriously, but with the faith that American democracy was here before them and will be here after them. Well, I don't know that that's a certainty. I'll take it as a prayer. I will take it as a prayer. And thank God it wasn't just me freaking out about this potential third-party group, this no labels jerks. There was an entire sort of consortium of concerned people, mostly Democrats, but also Republicans, never Trump types of Republicans, who got together. I guess, maybe even yesterday. Anyway, got together with the intention of figuring out how to subvert this no labels group, because they see what anyone with two operating brain cells would see, that no labels would give if they managed to get on the ballot and with a candidate that is attractive. They can pull those in-between voters that would go to Biden away and thus give the victory to Donald Trump, who at that point will be a defendant in so many criminal cases, the head will spin. Apparently, I mean, these were former DNC chairs, former campaign advisors to Obama, people who've worked with Biden. Then there was the Lincoln Project folks from Republicans like Bill Kristol and all of these. And the event was totally private, but we know it happened, and we know that these people are truly concerned that no labels is actually a Trojan horse that will give the election to Donald Trump. And you know who, probably, without a doubt, the most attractive candidate they could run, and a guy who might be perfectly willing to do so, because he has stabbed the Democratic Party in the back many a time, is, of course, Senator Joe Manchin. He will be up for re-election as senator, and he's got a formidable foe in Jim Justice, who will probably clean his clock. So Manchin is about to lose his Senate seat, I would imagine. So why not? I don't know. I mean, there has got to be so much pressure put on people. I don't know. I know in Arizona, the Democratic Party there is suing to kick this no labels off the ballot, at least in that state. Secretary of State of Maine has done the same thing. But, however they are to be fought, they've got to be fought. And again, make no mistake, no labels has some seemingly, good people that have signed on with them and that work with them because they want a more moderate, bipartisan kind of functional political reality here. Ben Chavez, formerly executive director of the NAACP, he works with no labels, and he speaks in their defense. He says, I've spent my entire life in the Democratic Party. I've always believed our democracy is stronger when there are more voices and choices in our political process. That's why I was so disturbed to hear that a group of my friends and leaders in the party recently convened to try to undermine No Labels' presidential project. And Chavez went on to say, No Labels will not spoil this election for Trump. Spoil it? You're going to give it to him. What we will do is continue working resolutely to give millions of Americans a choice they so clearly want. Okay, so the battle is joined in that respect. Good God. Okay, and just again to remind ourselves who these Republicans and conservatives are. We go to the Southern Baptist Convention. Yeah, I mean, they're like slightly conservative. They are also the largest Protestant denomination in the United States. And guess what they're doing at their convention? They got to vote on whether to literally refuse to allow women to be pastors. And they've already thrown some churches out, including one of their biggest churches, Saddleback Church in Southern California. That's what's his name? Rick Warren? Yeah, Rick Warren. I mean, he's well known. He's a major. They kicked him out, his church out, because after he stepped down, he put a man and a woman, a husband and wife, in his place. It's the wife part that is the problem. There's a church in Louisville that's been headed for 30 years by a woman, Fern Creek Baptist. She just got a letter saying, if you still are leading that church is no longer with us. You're expelled. What is going on here? I'll give you a word. Misogyny. Misogyny. The right wing of the Southern Baptists, I hate to see what the left wing of the Southern Baptists looks like. The right wing of the Southern Baptists is now, like conservatives, so-called conservatives in general, cracking down on what it sees as a dangerous liberal drift. And that means they're letting women into positions they shouldn't be. And they say, first, you let the women, and the next thing you know, it's the homosexuals and sexual immorality. By the way, it's an overwhelmingly white denomination, but guess what? Most of the female pastors are black. So there, you get a whole. I mean, this is killing two birds with one stone. You get rid of these blacks, you get rid of the women, and you put things back the way they're supposed to be with white men, white straight men, or white closeted men in charge. That's what's happening right now. Again, Jesus would turn over in his, yeah. I'm just saying. I also want to point out that David Brooks, I should have said this before, wrote a piece in which he was a big no labels fan. Even when they announced they were going to do this third party presidential run, he was still saying, yeah. He said last September when they went public, I was happy to use my column to introduce it to people. This $70 million effort to secure ballot access for a potential third presidential candidate. He said, yeah, I was right there on the bandwagon. And he's had second thoughts. He says, David, I don't know how you could have, I don't know how much has changed between September and now, but somehow something clicked in his head. And he said, a second Trump presidency represents an unprecedented threat to our democracy. And you didn't know that in September? In my view, our sole focus should be to defeat Trump. This is not the time to be running risky experiments, the outcomes of which none of us can foresee. I am persuaded that a third candidate would hurt Biden. Trump voters are solidly behind him, while Biden voters are wobbly. Then there's the group of voters called the double haters. They dislike both of them. Finally, if America wants a relative moderate who's eager to do bipartisan deal making, it already has one. He's in the Oval Office. Joe Biden, says David Brooks, doesn't get sufficient credit, but he has negotiated a bunch of deals on infrastructure, the CHIPS Act, guns, the debt limit. As long as Biden is running, we do not need a third option. Just saying. My favorite story, this lightens things up, the million pennies story. Again, because I don't watch TV. I would assume this would be a story they'd glom onto. It's visual. It's not about Trump. So, if you don't know about it, it's about he's I guess a real estate agent in Ontario, California, who was cleaning out his father-in-law, I think, house in Los Angeles, and they were cleaning out a crawl space in the basement, and they came upon, he and his son, I guess, came upon this hoard, boxes and bags full of pennies. And just going by the labels on the boxes and bags, they figured they had about $1 million. His father-in-law had hoarded 1 million pennies, and what the hell to do with them? First of all, they're heavy as holy hell. He didn't know what to do. So if there's 1 million, that translates to about $10,000 is what they're thinking. Here's $10,000. You don't pretend you didn't see it. But how do you can't bring it to the bank like that. They won't take it. As a matter of fact, the bank told him, even if you take the time to stick them in those little rolls, right? What is there, 50 of them, 50 cents right there, stack them up. The banks won't take that. It'd take you years to do it. The banks won't take it because they don't have space. They said, we don't have, we got a vault here, but we don't have, we can't do it. And then one person at Wells Fargo said, there might be 1 penny in there that's worth $1 million. What? Says the guy. And I guess this is something that coin collectors know about. It has to do, I guess, with the copper that pennies used to be made out of. I'll read this here. It even lost me. Anyway, the United States Mint initially made pennies out of pure copper. But because copper was essential to the war effort in World War II, the coins then became zinc-covered steel. And that started in 1943. And by 1982, the penny was made primarily from zinc with some copper. The U.S. Mint struck a limited number of copper pennies, and some have turned out to be particularly valuable. According to the Mint, very few of these 1943 copper alloy pennies made in error are known to remain in existence. I have to tell you, Lauren McCarthy, who wrote this piece, you didn't do a good job. You skipped something here that doesn't quite get me to understand. Anyway, someone found one of these pennies and put it on the market in 1996, and it sold for $82,500. Another last year sold for $300,000. So assuming you got, 1 million pennies there, the odds are you just might have something that's worth it. So still, what are you supposed to, and this poor guy who found them, he still doesn't want a deal. He doesn't know what to do. He wants to get them out. He's got to sell the house. So They then decided, knowing that there might be a lot of money here, they decided to sell, to put them up. Anyone who wants these, come and get them, but you have to get them out. You move them. It'll take 2 or 3 trucks to move all these pennies out. You go ahead. You give us $25,000. See, they're figuring, okay, so if there's more money, yeah, okay. For $25,000, you take the million pennies and then sift through them for the rest of your life looking for the $1 million penny. Anyway, they've had hundreds of offers, but I don't know. I don't know what the end of that story will be. And I don't know what the odds are that one of those pennies. So I don't know if 25,000 is that's a smart bet to make, picking up that kind of hoard that has been hoarded for a long, 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 long time. I don't know. Strange stuff. I never found anything. I found some love letters my father wrote my mother in the attic. I was pretty young. They were wonderful. God, I was up in that attic reading that stuff. It was wonderful. I don't know what happened to him. I have an obit, a little bit old here, but oh, how I detested this guy. He was in Reagan's cabinet. Interior Secretary, James Watt. Yeah. What a nutcase. But I have to admit that the thing he said that finally did him in, I think is funny. What a nutcase. So right after he was, given that job, he had to appear at some hearing. It's 1981 is the year. And it was the House Interior Committee, and they were asking the new Interior Secretary if he, let's have to think about this. The question is, do you favor preserving our wilderness areas for future generations? How would the answer be anything but of course? Why would I not? That's what an Interior Secretary is supposed to do, isn't it? Well, no. Remember, this is a Republican administration. And in Republican administrations, all these governmental agencies are turned upside down. So the Environmental Protection Agency is not about protecting the environment. It's about exploiting it. The Interior Secretary is not about preserving. It's about capitalizing on all that wilderness, right? So this is what the difference. And when people say, there's no difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, there always was a difference. Some pretty fundamental differences. And now, anyway, so he was asked, do you favor it? Do you know what his answer was? Well, I do not know how many future generations we can count on before the Lord returns. Okay, so there was that. The answer was obviously no, because the rapture's coming. And let's get rich quick. Fuck the future. The rapture's coming. That was early in his tenure. And boy, did he go to work. He opened almost every square inch of America's coastal waters to the oil and gas companies. Drill, baby, drill. He widened access to coal on federal lands. He was really intent on I guess, making sure there would not be future generations. Everything he did helped to spoil the earth. Strip mining, he loved it. He said, go for it. You want to do it on federal lands? Go for it. He said, here's all this federal land. Drill. Cut the trees down. He gave private owners a lot of rights in national parks. He endangered species. Fuck them. There was an Interior Department program to protect endangered species. He pretty much slashed it to nothingness. He cut funds to acquire land for national and state parks, and he added money to build roads, bridges, hotels, Walmarts, anything on federal land. So, this is the Republican Party. This is the Republican Party in 1981, when I was probably starting my show with a sigh. And then you think that it's just this current iteration of Republicans that talk smack all the time. Listen to what James Watt, the God-fearing Christian, said. I never use the words Democrats and Republicans. I use the words liberals and Americans. Well, that's been, upped. And then, again, this sort of sense of potential violence. Again, 1982, he said, if the troubles from these environmentalists can't be solved in the jury box or the ballot box, perhaps the cartridge box should be used. So it's not hard, seeing this thread. And, even with James Watt and how it ended up. The last thing he said that created a huge stir and actually got him, I think, fired. But I think is the funniest thing he said. Even at the time, I had to laugh. He was talking to some group of business leaders, and he was particularly upset at the time because the Senate had voted to keep him from giving away any more federal land to coal mining. And to disparage and denigrate the people who were for saving this, the land. He denigrated the panel that would have come to this conclusion. He said they have every kind of mixture. Black, a woman, 2 Jews, and a cripple. So there he was, making fun of diversity. But I think that at the time I remember laughing. I'm a black woman, 2 Jews, and a cripple. What I wonder is why, and even the 2 Jews is suspiciously anti-Semitic. Because, the Jews, they're always taken, of course, you got Jews overrepresented because they're power mad and they run things. A black, a woman, 2 Jews, and a cripple, I bet it got a really good laugh. I have a caller at this late date. Come on, in you come.
Hey, this is Kurt.
Hi, Kurt.
Hey, real quick, I finished up at CMU in 1982, and while I was there, they engaged in a nice campus beautification project. They planted a whole bunch of trees that were like 20 feet tall. They were like $10,000 a piece, and they all died. And someone was clever enough to put up a sign amongst those trees that called it the James Watt National Forest.
There it is. That's it. Well, that's good. That's good. They all, my God.
They did. They didn't plant them right, or they watered them wrong, or something, and they all died.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Like, was there a ton of them? I mean, like, how many? My God, 10,000.
Oh, there were lots. It was sort of a big deal, and the university said they were going back to the vendor, and because the kids were complaining it was a big waste of their money, and blah blah blah. But I like the sign, the James Watt National Forest, in front of this grove of dead trees.
My God. It just occurred to me that in his little a black woman, 2 Jews, and a cripple, what wasn't represented? Gays.
Yeah,
because this is, that's right. You hadn't, gays had not achieved the kind of standing to make that little litany of, these jerks you got to put in charge now. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to keep some groups in reserve for oppression.
Always. Yeah, always. Well, that's what trans folks are here for now. Yeah, always keep them in reserve. Hey, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye. God. And did you see that there's a lawsuit brought by some young people? Just to finish off James Watt here. 16 people arguing in a trial in Montana that the state was destroying their future. Exactly the opposite of what James Watt would have done. The kids, they range in age from 5 to 22 now, that the Montana government has failed to live up to its constitutional mandate to maintain and improve a clean and healthful environment in Montana for present and future generations. And this is now in front of a judge. God help you, kids. That's all I have to say. God help you. So, I don't know. I was going to say something about John Lennon's song coming, the new Beatles song. Have you heard about that? Thanks to artificial intelligence, Paul McCartney has said that they've taken some track that John Lennon sang back in the who knows where, over 50 years, 60 years ago. I don't know. And they've, I don't know. They took his voice and threw some AI on it, and they mixed a record, and they're apparently calling it the last Beatles song. Haven't said what it is yet. A senior lecturer on the Beatles at the University of Liverpool, well, it makes sense, said there was speculation that the song might be a song called Now and Then, a song that John Lennon composed and recorded in the late 70s. Well, that'd be a perfect song for Now and Then. Perfect title for resurrecting a dead man's voice and a dead record and conjuring the difference between the world as we knew it in the 1970s and the world that we're dangerously heading into in 2023. The singularity. Daisy, Daisy, Tell me your answer true. I'm half crazy. That's the song, right? In 2001. All of a sudden, it didn't sound right. Of course, nothing sounds right when I'm singing it, but okay, I think that's it. That is it. I'm looking at a clock and it says that's it. Okay. I'll be back at you tomorrow. I think there'll be some truncated shows next week. I'm going to have a house full of relatives, including 2-year-olds, and I just don't see a way of doing the show. Might do Monday and maybe Tuesday. Don't know. I'll figure it out. Kind of, sort of, maybe. But I definitely don't think there'll be shows next week on Wednesday and Thursday. Okay? That's all I have to say. I'm out of here. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.